Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the No Silicast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, August 17th, 2025, and this is show number 1058. Our grandson Forbes is a delightful child, but he's been doing this annoying thing they call growing up. He just had a birthday, and his parents agreed that we could buy him his first Apple Watch. They felt he was mature enough to handle the responsibility, and they liked the idea of being able to contact him and vice versa. The story I'm about to tell is how much harder it was to execute this seemingly simple maneuver than I ever dreamed. To tell the story, I need to give some background. We have an Apple One family sharing plan for me and Steve, Lindsay and her husband Nolan, along with our son Kyle and his wife Nikki. We use a lot of data, and by we, I mean Lindsay and I. We've had to bump up from 2 terabytes to the next step, which unfortunately is an additional 6 terabytes, giving us a total of 8 terabytes. That took the Apple One account from $38 a month to $68 a month. I know that's crazy high, but it's all of our photos for 6 people, all of our documents and desktop are in iCloud. We've got Apple TV Plus, where we all watch a lot of content. By the way, go watch Stick. It's amazing. We do Fitness Plus, and Lindsay and I use that to exercise. Apple Music, which everybody but me uses. Nobody uses Arcade very much, and we could probably do without Apple News, but overall, we get a lot of value out of the service. Now let's talk complications. Young Master Forbes has an iPhone of his own, which functions basically as an iPod Touch since it has no cell plan. His iPhone has been logged into Lindsay's iCloud account ever since he got it. A year or so ago, Lindsay asked if maybe she should get him his own Apple account instead of being logged into hers. Unfortunately, the rules of family sharing state that you get the organizer plus 5 additional members, and we already had a total of 6 people on our plan. There was no room for Forbes to get access to any services, so we abandoned that whole path. Then we started working on whether it would be practical to get an Apple Watch for Forbes and how all these pieces would fit together. We assumed that since it would be under a parent/guardian, as far as Apple was concerned, it wouldn't count as an additional human. We were wrong, so we were right back to where we started. It looked like it was time to kick Lindsay and Nolan out of the nest to start their own family sharing plan with Apple. But here's the rub. Just Lindsay and Nolan combined would use a smidge more than the 2 terabytes of a family plan, which means they'd have to go up to $68 a month since Apple only lets you go from 2 terabytes to 8 terabytes. That didn't sound like a great solution to anyone. We noodled this for quite a while until Nolan came up with a solution. His mom has an Apple One plan that he could join and not go over the 2 terabyte limit, so he could leave our family and make room for Forbes. This also meant that Lindsay would be the parent guardian managing Forbes and his Apple Watch shenanigans. There'd be a lot of communication between me and the person managing Forbes, so it really made more sense that it would be Lindsay. With his first hurdle out of the way, it was time to price out the Apple Watch. Still trying to figure out if this is going to be practical. We also needed to figure out a cellular plan to see if that was reasonable. I originally planned on handing down an older Apple Watch of mine, then I realized that's not going to work because none of my hand-me-downs were cellular capable. We'd have to buy him a brand new watch because I was not giving up my Series 10 for a little kid, no matter how responsible and awesome he is. I priced the Apple Watch SE 2nd generation, which is smaller than the regular models, so it's perfect for Forbes. It was $250 directly from Apple, but the night we decided to buy, it was only $170 from Best Buy. It's like $210 at the time of this writing. The other advantage for us to buy through Best Buy is that we pay for their Total Tech package. Total Tech is an extended warranty plan, and among other benefits, it gives you free Apple Care on any products you buy from them. We buy a lot from Best Buy, and it's paid off on a few of the products we've bought there, including a very expensive ice maker that failed and was replaced for free. Since the $170 deal was expiring in a few hours, I purchased the Apple Watch figuring I could return it shortly after it got there if the rest of the pieces didn't fall into place, but I wanted that $170 deal. With the purchase plan taken care of, I needed to figure out how much the monthly service was going to cost through AT&T, which is our carrier. You would think the cost of a cellular plan for an Apple Watch would be, printed somewhere on the AT&T website, wouldn't you? No, it simply is not. I even tried adding an imaginary watch to my plan, but without the IMEI number, you can't even pretend to buy a plan to see the price. I ended up having to make a phone call. Can you imagine? This really proves how much I love Forbes. When Argon from AT&T answered my call, we had a quick chat, and he proudly told me the cost would be $11 a month. That sounded pretty reasonable. I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. I asked him how much would be added in tax. After a bit of searching around and looking at a few things, Argon said, I don't know, around $5 or $6 a month. Excuse me? I pointed out that would be a 50% tax rate. He didn't think it was 50%, and I had explained that halfway between 5 and 6 is 5.5. That's exactly 50% of $11 per month. He tried to excuse this by saying, well, that's what you're already paying on your cell phone plans. Well, sweetie, that $6 is on a $60 a month cell phone plan, so that's 10%. He says, oh, okay, then it's probably 10%. All right, fine, let's go with that. That makes sense, because that is the tax rate right here. Moving on, I asked him what other additional fees we'd have to pay. Sweet and innocent Argon said, oh, there won't be any fees. Right. I reworded the question this time and I said, how about regulatory fees? And he said, no regulatory fees. I still wasn't buying it. I respectfully said I'd love to see something in writing showing me that my total cost would be $11 per month plus that 10% tax. Took him quite some time, but he managed to get a document printed to PDF that had all of the pricing for me. Guess what it said? No, really, you guess. You're right. An additional $4 in regulatory fees was applied. So along with the 10% tax rate, that brings the plan to $16 a month. I was annoyed that it was so hard to figure this out, but Argon and I parted as friends. Luckily, Forbes' birthday coincided with our family trip to Michigan, which gave Lindsay and me ample time to actually execute the plan of setting up his Apple Watch with Cellular and getting it managed by her in our Apple One family plan. Forbes already had an email address, so Lindsay created an Apple account for him using that address. We spent some time experimenting with escapepastwd.net, as one does, to pick passwords that you can remember and easily type on an iPhone or Apple Watch. Lindsay recorded it in 1Password, as one does. From family sharing in iCloud, we were able to add one person to our family since we kicked poor Nolan out of the nest, and one of the options was to create a child account. All right, we're getting somewhere. Lindsay logged out of iCloud on his phone and logged into his shiny new Apple account. Then we paired the watch to his phone. We hadn't gotten Cellular working yet, but we figured it'd be fun to give it to him right away and get the rest of that working the next day. He was delighted, showing, about as much emotion as a 9-year-old boy is capable of, and he started setting up things on his watch. His brain is a sponge, so he learned quickly, and he has tiny little fingers, so selecting items on the small screen and even typing on it was no problem to him at all. But we had 2 problems to solve. One problem was that Forbes' phone was kind of mixed up. Remember, Lindsay logged out of her account and logged into Forbes? Well, for some reason, that left all of the games he'd bought under her account, which was good, but all of her photos were still there, her contacts, and even her image was on his identity. That's when we realized we needed to erase all contents and settings on the phone, not just log out of her account. Then we had to figure out how to enable Cellular. The main point of this part of the story is that, to my knowledge, Apple has not published an end-to-end support article on how to set up a cellular Apple Watch as a standalone device for a child. Over the course of hours, we were able to piece together how it works, but it's definitely not all in one place. At one point, I had to phone a friend using that lifeline to contact Melissa Davis, also known as the Mac Mommy. She has tons of experience working with kids' devices, so she was a big help. Before I figured out the right way to do it, I followed online instructions, I think from AT&T, that said we could go to enable Cellular right from the watch. We found the option on the watch to activate Cellular, but it simply wouldn't go. We erased the watch, thinking maybe something we'd done earlier had messed it up, but we got an error saying, your AT&T account is not eligible to enable Cellular on your Apple Watch. Cool. That's great. Thanks. Well, a whole lot of the Googles later, we learned that a child's Apple Watch has to be paired to the parent's phone, not their own. Even though Lindsay already had an Apple Watch paired to her phone, she was able to add a second watch that was connected to Forbes. You've probably seen this before. I'd forgotten about it. When you add a watch, it says, is this for you or for someone else? Well, that's where you add a child device. This process of Lindsay adding the paired Apple Watch did make him an official member of our Apple One account with all of the glories to be found there. From Lindsay's iPhone, it asked to set up cellular on Forbes' watch. Now we're on to something. Surprisingly, it showed my AT&T account to her, but I guess that makes sense since I'm the primary member of our shared group of iPhones on AT&T for the family. Somewhere in here, I remember authorizing the cost for cellular, but to be honest, when that step happened, that's now a mystery to me. It was very late at night. I was exhausted from fighting this, and because the support on this process was garbage, I hit the wall when trying to set up cellular when it said, "Number sync soft SIM flow completed," followed by absolute gibberish. I put a screenshot in the show notes of what we saw. It was just complete garbage on screen, and I lost my mind. Steve suggested I have a nice little timeout and go to bed, but we were so close, I refused. Plus, we had erased Forbes' watch, and I wanted him to be able to play with it again the next day. We hit the gibberish notification about number sync soft SIM flow a second time, but no joy. On the third try, can't remember which button we pushed, but it finally allowed us to enable cellular on his watch. We were curious what would happen to his phone now that his watch was paired to Lindsay's phone. Turns out that since his watch and his iPhone are both logged into the same Apple account now, the data all syncs between the two, so it seems like that works okay. No steps in this process revealed his phone number, but we eventually found it on Lindsay's phone in the watch app. I decided to log into my AT&T account to verify that the cellular plan had been enabled properly, and sure enough, there was a new device called Apple Watch SE Series 2. That was great. But it said my name instead of Forbes's. Makes sense. No problem, I'll just use the little edit button there to change the name. No, you can't do that unless you verify you're you. I was logged in with two-factor authentication, but no, it wanted to verify me. It said it was going to send a 6-digit code to my email address. No problem at all. I got the code, copied and pasted it in, and it failed. I tried again, and it failed again. Finally, I had to use chat, thank goodness it wasn't a phone call, and have an AT&T rep change the name on the device for me. What an expensive thing to pay for someone to do for me. Good grief. Well, remember how I said Lindsay pairing the child's Apple Watch added Forbes to our glorious Apple One account? Well, it wasn't actually that easy. On Forbes' iPhone, I opened iCloud and looked at his available storage, and it said 5 gigabytes. Well, that's annoying. Yet another thing I had to figure out. I was shocked to find an actual Apple support article that explained what was going on. Imagine you're joining an Apple One family sharing plan, and you're personally already paying for 2 gigabytes of storage, but you want all of the other glories of the Apple One, and this family plan doesn't have that much storage. Turns out you can keep your own storage plan, but still be part of the family. That might be important information to stick in the back of my little pea brain, as Dorothy would say, because when Lindsay and Forbes eventually get kicked out of the nest, maybe she could buy a 2 terabyte plan, and joining with Nolan would not require an extra 6 terabytes. We'll have to noodle that math when the time comes. The support article went on to explain how Forbes could abandon his massive 5 gigabyte plan and join our 8 terabyte plan. I made the change, and just that easy, Forbes was finally a full-fledged member of our family sharing plan. By the way, I've been kind of mixing up family sharing and family one. I realize that, but I'm too lazy to go look it all up and get the right terminology there, but you know what I mean. The next day, we still had a few loose ends to clean up, believe it or not. How do you set up voicemail on an Apple Watch child plan? According to AT&T, you can only set up your voicemail password from your paired device. Once AT&T number sync is enabled, unanswered calls will route to the paired device's voicemail. You will not be able to set up voicemail when using Wi-Fi calling. Well, that's not going to work because the paired device is Lindsay's iPhone, and there won't be number sync between her phone and Forbes' watch. I did some more of the Googles, and I found the path. On the Apple Watch, you open the phone app and tap on voicemail. Now we're cooking with gas. We found it. We selected that option and added a button that said Set Up Now. It says to create a voicemail passcode of 4 to 15 digits. Cool. I typed in the 4 digits I knew he would know, but the next button was grayed out. Well, that was weird. Tried a 6-digit code I thought he'd remember. Nope, the next button was still grayed out. Finally, I experimented by typing 1 digit at a time and counting how many times I typed that digit until the next button was available. And it was 7 digits. Not 4 to 15, had to be 7 to 15. Why is everything about this so darn hard? Anyway, we started this process on Wednesday of our trip, and by Saturday, on our way to the airport where we tried to set up his voicemail, we hadn't yet succeeded. We decided to leave setting that up as an exercise for Lindsay and Nolan and Forbes. The bottom line is it's been great fun having Forbes call us at random times of the day from his watch, walkie-talking us, giggling like the silly little guy he is, and sending us text messages that simply say, "Hi." But I gotta say, I had no idea Apple and AT&T would make this process so difficult. I don't know how normal people navigate this convoluted set of rules and methods to make it go. 2 years ago, I penned an article entitled, "Will the PETLIBRO Smart Cat Feeder Keep My Cat from Overeating?" I'm back with a report and a big update. For the past 2 years, our two cats, Ada Lovelace and Grace Hopper, have been happily fed by our PETLIBRO dual cat feeder. We travel a lot, and it gives us peace of mind knowing they're getting controlled portions in our absence, and they don't have to wait for the cat sitter to show up for a daily visit to be fed. The question of whether it would keep Ada from overeating has kind of a complicated answer. She did stop getting fatter every time we left the house, but she still ate out of Grace's bowl, so she managed to maintain her Rubenesque figure. That's actually what the vet called it. Anyway, it turns out the best way to get a cat to lose weight is to bring a new puppy into the house. We're not sure if it was stress or just having to run around a bit more to get out of Kepler's way, but both cats lost 2 pounds in the first 6 months that Kepler's been in our home. The way we discovered that, though, was quite unfortunate. Grace went through a bout where she was sleeping all day, not eating, hiding in weird places, just kind of lethargic. And she was doing that head movement cats do when they have a hairball they're trying to eject, but not coughing or anything. After having blood tests, an x-ray, and a sonogram, and 3 vet visits, and you can imagine how much that cost, they couldn't find a reason for this lethargy. We felt all along that it was some tall grasses she might have eaten in our backyard, and one day she did start coughing. She coughed a lot, and then right after that, she sprang back to her normal, energetic self. We were relieved and a smidge annoyed we'd spent all that money when the answer was kind of obvious. However, the blood test did reveal some important information. Grace's thyroid levels were way off. Good news is there's a pretty easy fix. A company called Hills makes a food diet designed to bring the thyroid levels back into balance in a matter of weeks by lowering iodine intake levels. It's called Hills Prescription Diet YD. I looked that up. The Y in the name stands for iodine, but it's not like some scientific abbreviation. It turns out they just picked the letter. So YD means iodine diet. Anyway, this isn't a show about medical or even cat stuff. It's a tech show. So let's get back to tech. I asked the vet if it was okay can I just feed this low iodine diet to both cats? And she said, no, that would harm Ada. I whined to her. I said, how do I feed 2 cats 2 different diets? She suggested I buy cat feeders that use an RFID chip to open only for the correct cat. Oh, come on, why didn't I think of the technical solution? Well, since we were happy with PETLIBRO from a product standpoint, and we'd gotten good support from them in the past, and we were comfortable and happy with their software, I started looking at their RFID product offerings first. I did a smidge of research to find out if other companies were doing it better, but most sites I looked at ranked the PETLIBRO solution at the top. The product we bought is called the One RFID Smart Feeder. That's a really weird name. The name of the feeder is One RFID Smart Feeder. You can buy one at a time, you can buy a bundle of 2 or a bundle of 3 where you get a discount on buying more than one. I wondered why they offer an RFID feeder as a single unit, but then I realized this could eliminate the problem of, say, a dog eating the cat's food. For obvious reasons, I bought the bundle of 2. The pair cost $270. That sounds like a lot of money, but when you compare it to the thousands in vet costs I just spent, it didn't sound that bad. Okay, it's still a lot, but keeping her alive for a long time is worth it to us. To keep each cat only able to eat out of their own feeder, the cats wear a collar with an attached RFID tag, and when they go to the correct feeder, it's supposed to open up and allow them to eat. When the wrong cat tries to steal food, the device won't open and will even close on them if the correct cat just walked away. And that was the theory. When we got the 2 RFID feeders, or to say it correctly, the 2 One RFID feeders, the packaging confused and then delighted me. Upon opening one feeder box, there were only 5 pieces. There was a cat collar with an RFID tag pendant on it, a small rectangular metal food bowl, a plastic tray that looked designed to hold the food bowl, a plastic mat, and a large chamber that clearly would hold the food to dispense it. Being of the persuasion that waits till desperation sets in to look for a manual, I began assembly. Pretty obvious to put the food bowl in the plastic tray. The plastic mat had a rectangular depression about the size of the plastic tray, and a connector sticking up that looked like it would mate with the tray. I was right, these three pieces fit together nicely. The assembly then connected in an obvious way to the food container. But at that point, I was baffled. Where were the rest of the parts? There must be more to this feeder. I flipped it over and I found a cover for 3 D-cell batteries to be inserted and a USB-C port all on the bottom. I wouldn't be needing the battery backup since we have a whole home battery system in case of power outages, but for most people, this is a very important feature. Worst thing ever if you're out of town when the power goes out, you don't know it, and your kitties don't get fed. But there still seem to be a lot of pieces missing, like where's the power supply? Where's the USB-C cable? Some way for the food bowl to be covered up when the correct cat isn't standing there looking for food. I opened the top of the feeder's large food chamber, and I was delighted by the genius of those who designed the packaging. Instead of putting these devices in giant boxes with room for all of the parts, they packed the extra parts inside the food chamber. Genius, I tell you. There was stiff foam inside to keep the parts safe, but I could see the power supply, the very nice braided USB-C cable, the jointed plastic cover that would keep the greedy cat out of the wrong feeder, and the side guards that also keep the greedy cat from stealing food while the correct kitty is eating. One of the reasons we went with PETLIBRO was the ease of setup with our original granary feeder from them. And the one RFID was just as easy to set up. The app explains to plug it in case you forgot that part, and then press a button on the front of the feeder for 3 seconds to start the network configuration. The device looks for nearby Bluetooth devices, does the handshake, and then makes the connection. Throughout this process, our Rubenesque cat Ada watched with anticipation. After we added the 2 devices to our network and named them after the 2 different cats, the instructions told us that our 2 1 RFID feeders needed to be more than 10 inches, 25 centimeters, apart to prevent interference between the 2 devices. The next step was to pair the RFID collars with the separate feeders. You simply set an RFID collar onto the little front pad where the cats would stand, and then tap the Add Collar button in the app. As with our previous PETLIBRO feeder, we were able to set up feeding times for each meal, name the meals, and set the food quantity. You can also set which days to have the meal repeat, which I thought was kind of odd. Would you give your cat lunch Monday through Friday, but not on weekends or not on Thursdays? You may remember the joy of our previous feeder when we learned that we could record audio to play when a meal was imminent. I recorded my voice giving a pig call. Every time the cat feeder would go off, it would say, "Sweet, pig, 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 pig." Steve even let me name the device Pig Slop. With the new feeders, Steve and I both wanted the experience of setting them up. That's what happens when nerds marry. So we each did one of those in our separate apps on our phones. That meant we had to negotiate what to record since only the original owner of a given device had that privilege. Of course, I did the pig call for Ada's feeder because it continues to amuse me. Steve recorded, "Here, kitty, 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 kitty," for Grace's feeder. This kind of created a cacophony as both feeders went off at the same time. You'd hear this pig call and the kitty, kitty, kitty call at the same time. We considered offsetting the time of the 2 devices by maybe a minute to reduce the effect, but Steve had a better idea. He's heard my voice doing the pig call so many times, he was able to actually replicate it on the second feeder. We really do entertain ourselves around here. And we were able to share the devices with each other so we can control most of the settings for either one through our separate phones. I eventually had an epiphany on why you might not schedule a meal for every day. The breakfast call for our cats is at 8 a.m. What if you want to sleep in on weekends? You could create a brunch meal for Saturday and Sunday. Not very nice to the kitties who do get used to a set feeding schedule, but I'm just saying you could. I took a screenshot of the feeding schedule from the app and saw something I hadn't noticed originally. At the top, there's a global feeding schedule to turn it off, as well as toggles for each separate meal. Imagine you're going on vacation and your little darlings are going to summer camp. You wouldn't want that food bowl filling up and jamming the whole thing, and you definitely wouldn't want to have to recreate all those meals, so you can just shut the schedule off. Or maybe your baby is off to the vet overnight, you could just turn off the dinner feeding. After we got the settings straight, we poured Grace's special diet into her feeder and Ada's plain old Purina cat chow into hers. Each bowl is covered by a rectangular louvered door. The default condition is for it to lie flat, but when the RFID tag is over the little pad in front of it, the doors fold up and back to expose the food. If the correct kitty is standing on the pad, thereby opening the doors, The other kitty can't get into the food because of those plastic guards on either side of the bowl. On the front of the device, some non-tactile buttons allow you to override the normal behavior and manually feed the cats or just open the door. I mentioned them being non-tactile because if you're visually impaired, it would be very hard to find the right one. The app still isn't accessible either, so I'm afraid these products are not the right devices for you. Now, the big question is whether this would work to feed the two cats two different diets. I can report that although Grace is still not at all fond of her new food, she seems to be resigned to her diet. Ada's not any happier. She eats all of her food and then she looks forlornly through the closed clear plastic doors at Grace's uneaten portions. Grace was trepidatious about standing on the pad at first. For a few days, we had to put cat treats on the pad and then a few in the bowl just to get her to walk onto that pad and try to eat. Eventually, she learned to straddle it with her two front paws so she didn't have to touch the pad, and that would hang the RFID tag in the right place to open the doors. She's finally gotten comfortable with standing on the pad in the month or so we've had the feeder, and notably, food-motivated Ada had zero problems figuring out how to get fed. Now, early on, we caught Grace in the act of trying to eat over Ada's head to get to the food bowl. Those plastic guards did their job. We've also learned through this experience how much the cats eat. The PETLIBRO app gives you logs that identify the cat and tell you how long they ate. It's been no surprise to find out that Ada eats a lot and eats often, and that Grace eats much less often. We suspected that based on the size of the two cats and how often we saw Ada chowing down, but now we have measured data. As of the day I wrote this article up, Grace ate 4 times for a total of 8 minutes, while Ada ate 9 times for a total of 16 minutes. It's a pretty crazy difference for two cats who are sisters. Now, we actually had to cut back how much we were dispensing to Grace's feeder because it was kind of backing up in the bowl. We now feed Ada 3 times a day, but Grace only twice a day. Both cats seem healthy and are equally active. I'll be able to share this data with our vet when we take her in for a checkup. The bottom line is that we're very pleased with the PETLIBRO 1 RFID automated feeders because they're helping Grace maintain a healthy life and they're limiting how much Ada can eat. This will make the vet happy and help them both live longer. The cats were not at all pleased with wearing collars for the first times in their lives, but I think they both look quite elegant in their little pendants. Whenever we get a new Patreon supporter, I like to celebrate them on the show. But then there are the unsung heroes, those people who quietly continue to support the show through Patreon. These folks are the lifeblood of making it affordable for me to create the content of the NosillaCast, Chit Chat Across the Pond, and Programming by Stealth. Let's see if I can call out the names of the folks who've been contributing since 2016, 9 years, faster than you can hit your skip forward 30-second button. We've got Mark, Brett, Richard, Dorothy, Kevin, Bob, RW, Christopher, Tom, Barry, Jamie, Doug, Desmond, Steve, Trevor, and Yope. Thank you, all of you, for your continued support. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Security Bits with Bart Busschots. Lovely to see you today, Bart.
And always lovely to see and talk to you, even though we were just talking yesterday, but that was with a very different hat on.
That's right. That's right. My audience doesn't know about that yet, so we'll keep that under wraps.
Yes. Right. Cybersecurity. Let us do a little bit of follow-up on probably the most consequential story we talked about 2 weeks ago was the T app, which is an app it's supposed to be to help women date safely, which is obviously stupendously important. And in terms of the goals of an app, it's very hard not to get more behind T than is possible. The problem is they failed miserably at actually protecting their users. And much to my surprise, they're still growing. People are signing up.
No.
So if anyone in your family or friends is doing something nuts like not running away, let alone running towards them, they dedicated the entire most recent episode of the Kill Switch podcast to explaining what happened, why it's a problem, and why you really, 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 really don't want to join that website. So it's really well explained. So I figure maybe rather than you trying to tell them, send them a link to someone else trying to tell them.
Yeesh.
Yes. Now, action alerty time. Things to do. It has been Patch Tuesday. So patchy, patchy, patch, patch. The absolute worst vulnerabilities are for the sysadmins who are at the cutting edge. Windows Server 2025, which is very new. But there are some fairly serious, Microsoft rate them as critical. They just don't happen to be exploited in the wild yet, but they're still critical bugs. So regular folks should patchy, patchy, patch, patch all the same. And some of the coverage of this month's Patch Tuesday is starting to lean into the fact that this is the second to last time that there are going to be updates for Windows 10 as part of the normal cycle. And Brian Krebs did something that surprised me. He gave a very practical piece of advice to people on older hardware that don't want to upgrade their hardware and want an OS that feels quite like Windows 10. He suggested Linux Mint, which is a distro whose raison d'etre is to be a welcoming place to Windows users.
Oh, that's fun.
Yes.
I know I've seen distributions that are made to mimic Mac OS's interface to make it
Right.
comfy for us types, but I didn't know there was Windows one. I should have thought of that. Obviously, that would exist.
Yeah. So
So
of all the Linuxes, it's the least intimidating to your Windows using friends and family. So if you're the family IT and you're happy enough to do a Linux install, then your family should be happy enough to use that particular flavor of Linux because I think it's KDE based. And so they've laid out the bottom bar so it behaves like the bottom bar in Windows and the button to launch apps behaves like the start menu. And it's just going to feel like Windows feels. And things are going to be where you expect them to be.
I'm worried we're going to be in a whole nother conversation a year from now on hacks and terrible things happening.
Oh,
ZDNet, as of April of this year, they I think this was EdBot. Yeah, EdBot estimates 500 million PCs are still running Windows 10.
we
That's a
shall
lot
see
of
what
unpatched
happens.
systems.
I imagine a few things will happen. Microsoft are not going to proactively push every bug fix. They're just not going to fix bugs. They're going to release the ordinary important security patches under their extended support agreement, which there are now ways to get for free if you jump through a few very small hoops. And if something goes terribly, horribly wrong, they will do what they've done before and they will release free patches to everyone.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
They got to look tough right now to try to get people to upgrade. But isn't it true that they could be allowing people to run Windows 11 on older hardware, or is it they simply can't?
They can't do it without downgrading the security gains of Windows 11.
Oh, okay. So it's not just a performance hit or, a poor experience.
It's TPM. It's that trusted platform module, which is the basis of good encryption. So you used to be able to run Windows without hardware support for full disk encryption and stuff through a TPM. And for Windows 11, they're saying our security baseline is that you have to have the hardware support for encryption.
So they could change it to not require that, but that
Yes.
would be against everything they believe in.
It would, and to some extent, you're trying to get rid of technical debt. Windows 10 was from, it's hard to call it a more innocent time, but a less uninnocent time. It's just these things need to die. The decisions that were made in the days before generative AI and the days before our modern world are not the right decisions anymore. And they have a finite lifetime. So I'm actually in favor of people being nudged into Windows 11. Just so long as if something goes terribly, horribly wrong, Microsoft do what I expect them to do, which is the backport. And Apple did this too, right? When there's an unsupported version of the Mac OS or iOS and there's really nasty stuff happening in the real world instead of in hypothetical land, Apple release updates for these ancient iPhones. And Microsoft
Right.
have done the same for Windows 7.
Right. I do remember that.
Yeah. So I don't predict doom and gloom, and I'm hoping in the long run we all end up a little bit more secure as the baseline raises and everyone goes up a little bit. Now, it has also been Google's turn to do their monthly patchy thing, in this case for Android, and there are about 6 critical vulnerabilities, of which a handful are related to Qualcomm hardware chips, and they're pretty nasty, no user interaction, remote code execution sort of vulnerabilities. So if you're on a Google Pixel device, you can protect yourself straight away. The chances are very high that the more reputable brands, the Samsungs and stuff, will have you a patch very quickly, probably before now. But if you're on an older Android phone, this is yet another case where you have really nasty 0 days actively exploited in the wild, and you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting to get a patch via your cell phone carrier in the worst possible case scenario, or some sort of third-party vendor who's decided you should have bought a new phone by now. So be careful. I mentioned, I'm not sure I recommended, but I mentioned a company whom I do recommend called Proton having released a standalone authenticator app for people who want such a thing. If you took up our suggestion of experimenting with that, just be sure it's patched. Being new software, it had a wee bug. They fixed it extremely promptly, which is what you would hope. But you do want to make sure you're patched.
Yeah, I think I'd like my authenticator app to be patched. That'd be on my list of things to patch.
Yeah. Now, one you may not realize should be on your list is WinRAR, because a very common way to release malware that's very, very often used by ransomware gangs is utilities for extracting compressed files. Because it's very normal to compress files and send them by email, because a lot of corporate email servers and stuff won't let you send an exe file. So the answer is wrap it in a zip file, and then you can send people the cracker for the game they were looking for. Or, I mean, some places it will even start to get cranky if you send a .html file, because, well, that might be spam of some sort. And so I often find myself having to compress HTML files, which are 100% innocent, just to send them by email. Anyway, people on Windows often install third-party decompression utilities, and WinRAR is spectacularly popular. And that's an interpreter. So you get a file via email, and then you run it through this app, which interprets it. If there's a bug in that interpreter, you have execution of code. That's the problem WinRAR had. It has been patched, but now it's being really actively used by ransomware gangs to successfully take over PCs. So if you have WinRAR, patch.
Yeesh.
If, like, well, I know I still run Plex, and I think you do too, Alison.
I sure do.
Yes, we need to make sure our servers are patched, because we don't have details other than that Plex are proactively reaching out to clients or to users who are running two specific versions of the server, telling them to patch immediately. More information to follow. Whatever it is, it can't be good.
Yeah. That's something I don't really pay that much attention to. It's been just plugging away on my Synology, and it didn't occur to me to. I think it would tell me.
I had to go into DiskStation and open the package manager, and then it had a little badge saying, hey, you have an update for these 3 packages. And one of the packages I had an update for was my Plex.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so I get warnings when that's going to happen.
I probably should better configure my Synology.
Yeah, because I do get messages when it's going to be, there's updates, and it's always with the package manager, and then you can see the thing, and it does it for you. So it's pretty easy to do.
It's very easy to do. It's wonderful. I love just going in there and going, update, and it goes spinny, done.
I'm so glad you're on the Synology train.
Me too. It's so much nicer than all the messing about I used to do. Now,
I don't see an update on Plex, interestingly
Well, then you're
enough.
good. And you haven't got an email from Plex with a big shouty exclamation mark telling you have a problem. So whatever the versions are, it ain't you or me.
Yeah, May 10th was the last update. Interesting.
Well, keep an eye for an email from Plex. I didn't get one. So anyway. Finally, one last warning, very tightly focused. If you have a Lenovo webcam, you need to be aware that some of their more high-end webcams use a Linux-based operating system inside the webcam, and that there is a bug in some versions of that firmware which allows for remote code execution via the bad USB type attack. So, in the words of the security researchers, this allows remote attackers to inject keystrokes covertly and launch attacks independently of the host operating system. So the baddie gets into the webcam and starts injecting keystrokes into your computer from your webcam.
What? That's bananas. I mean, I guess we forget that a webcam is actually a little computer, right?
Good
It's got a
ones
little
are, yeah.
processor and memory and things like that, and it runs commands.
Yeah.
But that's bananas.
Yeah, so they
So
take
the
over your
solution
webcam
is-
and then your webcam, patch. If you have one of these
Oh, okay,
Linux
so there's-
webcams. Yes.
Because, I mean, putting a piece of black tape over the webcam isn't going to stop that one.
No. No, it isn't.
I mean,
Definitely not.
driving a screwdriver through it, that might work, but that's about it.
I think unplugging
Jeez.
the
Okay, glad
USB
there's a
cable.
patch.
I think that's the answer on that one.
What's that?
Unplugging
what?
the USB cable. These are like
I
external
thought
webcams.
Oh, external. I thought this was the internal one.
No. So it's the bigger ones which are plugged in over USB. That's the vector for the attack.
Okay, I thought it was internal and it was using the USB protocol internally, and that would have been slightly worse.
It would have been worse, yeah. My understanding is that's not the case. Either way, it's specific models. So if you have a Lenovo of any kind, just check and you'll be fine.
Okay, good.
Some worthy warnings then. The first is a piece of news where I don't know whether or not the people who have been affected by this have been told, because the US judiciary have actually had the Court Electronic Records Service be successfully breached and data leaked quite some months ago. But there is a pattern that I see in Europe and in America that government agencies are exempted from reporting responsibilities under various laws. In Europe, the Irish government can get away with not telling us about data breaches more than the local shop. And that's also true. That's true in lots of countries. And so I can't find any evidence that the US judiciary are informing anyone that this has happened. And it would appear to be the case that if you are a defendant, a litigant, or a witness, or an expert, and you've submitted stuff to the court system, it may have leaked. Yeah, so look, if you're the kind of person...
I immediately think of you're a witness in a mafious thing.
Right. So if you have been interacting with the court systems, just check what it is you shared and sort of bear in mind that someone could use that to try fish you very convincingly.
Yeah.
A similar,
I don't like that one.
Similar note here. This is one of the largest insurance companies. So we don't talk about every data breach by 20 million miles, but in this case, it's big enough that I think we should talk about it. But Allianz, the US arm of Allianz, they're a massive multinational, but it's the US division branch. I don't know how you describe these things, but the USy bit of Allianz Life we knew they had lost their data, which is never good. But the attackers have gotten petulant because they wouldn't pay the ransom. So they have publicly dumped 2.8 million records on Allianz Life customers. So that is a targeted phishing danger sign. And the data's public. Not just hypothetically attackers could use it. It's public. So every attacker on planet Earth could use this data to try phish you. So if you have been or are a customer of this insurance company, shields up. If you get an unexpected communication, don't trust it. Just don't.
In the spirit of phishing, I'm going to tell a quick story, and I'm scrambling to bring up the woman's name. But the 1Password team have a fantastic podcast called Random But Memorable. And in the most recent one, they had a woman named Rachel Toback on. And Rachel Toback is an ethical hacker. She runs a company where they train companies how to keep their employees safe. And they asked her, it's a fantastic interview in the latest episode, but they asked her one question. They said, if you could, what are the things that you tell companies? And she says, well, there's some things that are true now and there's things that are true forever. Okay. And so she gave a couple examples of what you can do
Fantastic.
now, and that's going to not be true later. So it's like at the state of AI, she was talking a lot about deep fakes. So you have somebody call you, and she said one of the things you could do right now is listen for a pause after you ask them the person a question. If there's a pause that just seems longer than it should be, it's very likely you're talking to an AI. So anyway, and obviously as AI gets better, that's going to get shorter, so that one's going to go away. But she gave one thing. She said, and it's so simple. 100% of the time that you get a request for something, check it through a second means. If you get a phone call, send the person a text. If you get an email, send them a Slack at work. Whatever it is, do the opposite of whatever way they contacted you, just double check. And you won't, no CEO on earth is going to get mad at you for double checking whether or not you should send that $20 million from your accounting system to this person, right? And it's such a simple thing. And she said, and this one will be true forever.
Yes. Get out of band. Whatever the mode of communication is, switch.
Yeah.
Different band. Yeah.
Like you're in email, there's a link. Open up your web browser, type in bankofamerica.com. It's just a different way of going at it. Call them on the phone, call the credit card company on the back, call the phone number on the back, hang up on whoever's talking to you. Just two different ways. And it's so simple. It's foolproof.
Yeah. It's evergreen advice of the best possible kind. I love it. Now, this is a timely reminder that it's probably a good time to check in on how your and your family's email accounts are doing in the Have I Been Pwned database of hacked accounts, because Troy Hunt has just added another giant big Stealer log leak. He's named it Data Troll Stealer Logs. The headlines on this thing are off the wall. There's talk of 16 billion people have been compromised, at which point I go, stop. Planet Earth doesn't have that many people.
I mean, sometimes driving on an LA freeway, it feels like it, but I'm pretty sure that's not the right number.
No, we're at about 8, I think, if memory serves. We haven't crossed the magic 10 number. No, that kind of a headline is just factually nonsense. So
maybe it's like what you were talking about in Let's Talk Apple, where you talked about how many iPhones had been sold. And it was, I forget what the number was, but you said, I'm pretty sure that's not one per person because I've bought 10. So
yeah. Right. And so Troy Hunt cleaned up the data before he put it into Have I Been Pwned. And he has found a 96% reduction in the size of the data set between input and output to his sanitization.
Oh, wow.
So that 16 billion is compressed by 96%. But do bear in mind that 4% of a very big number is still a very big number. So there actually are a lot of legitimate compromised details in this dump that has leaked onto the public internet. So you do actually want to know if you've been caught up in this. And I won't go into any sort of detail. I will say that you can if you own an email domain, you can subscribe to get notifications about everyone who has email addresses on that domain by proving your ownership of the domain. And I know for a fact that there are a lot of people caught up in this because I get notifications when one of the many, many domains I monitor for various reasons gets a notification, and I have to act on them. And it's real. There are human beings caught up in this for real. And a reminder, by the way, what a Stealer log is. So this is a case of baddies being every bit as bad at protecting their data as corporations are at protecting their data. Whether you're cyber criminal or normal business, you'll make your money by having data other people don't and managing it well. And the corporations mess up all the time, giving us traditional data leaks. But the cyber criminals do just the same. They have IT departments. They have HR departments these days. They're just like corporations. They're just illegal. And they lose their data too. So what's happened here is there has been malware collecting keystrokes, and they've all been phoning home. with apparent logins, which may or may not have been successful, and building up a database of these keystrokes, and the cyber criminals lost control of their database of stolen data. So no website was breached. This isn't so there are passwords in here for Apple accounts, and there are passwords in here for Microsoft accounts and for Google accounts and all sorts of really high profile stuff. None of those websites have been breached. This is keyloggers on individually hacked end user computers, not breached websites. And the reason the data is so dirty is because if you have a keylogger on your computer for a month, how many passwords has it sent back? How many of those are duplicates? How many of those are typos? How many times did you mistype your email address in that month? I mean, the data is filthy because it's from a really dodgy source. It's utterly unverified. So that's why the number of records just collapses.
Right. Well, wouldn't it also be if they've been collecting from all different keyloggers, they might get the same credentials twice?
Yes, absolutely. Deduplication is another big part of the reason the data shrinks down to 4% of the headline figure.
The one thing I wish that I could do in Have I Been Pwned is basically like draw a line that says, I've checked it below here. You know, is there anything new? Because luckily when I look back, the interface has been improved. It has little blocks for each time your email address was found in a vulnerability or in some sort of breach. And it's got a little bubble for what month that was. So it says September 2024 Internet Archive. I remember that one. So I know that I've already fixed that one and I would have fixed everything before. So now I can see a little bit more easily where I've done.
So I have two things to say to that. So the first is they often get data that goes back in time. So if you are fully up to date to 2025, they could get a new breach tomorrow from 2023. So you're not really up to date based on a breach time. You can be up to date based on the time
all
the
30
breach.
of these every time?
You don't have to. So if you keep the last report for your email address and then just get the new one and just compare them in Excel, you can see what's new for you, which would be a way smaller
Compare them
number.
in Excel? What do you mean?
Right.
This is a website.
But
I
you
don't
can
have an
export.
Excel file.
If you own an email address, if you just verify your email address, they'll send you either a JSON file or a CSV file with your data. So Alison@podfeet.com, you can get a report for Alison@podfeet.com in CSV format and just keep it. And then the next time, just compare those two CSVs, which there's a million and one tools for, and very, very little will change. You don't have to check the breaches you're not in. You just have to check the breaches you are in.
Yeah, but there's already 36 of them, Bart.
Okay, but
It's
like
a lot
I say,
of records to check. How often do I have to check it, you know?
well, if you've subscribed to notifications, you don't have to check ever because they'll only tell you when new data goes into Have I Been Pwned. So that's the reason I subscribe to notifications, because I don't want to check.
I can't do it. Just click notify me and it says verification failed. Error during notification sign up. E.wait for turnstile promise or timeout is not a function. So I'm pretty sure I have signed up before and I've never gotten an email from him. But
there is something very odd going on because I know for a fact it works because I use it very heavily.
Has worked.
Up
Maybe
until
not right now.
This week.
Maybe not right now.
Maybe not this very minute in time. Yeah. The second thing is the API is really cool and the list of data breaches is free. Anyone can access that from the API without needing any sort of payment or anything. It's just free part of the endpoint. So you actually can get a JSON file with every single breach Have I Been Pwned knows about, sort them by date, and get a lot more. You can do a lot of useful filtering for free. And if you pay the API,
my job is not to analyze data breach data sets. I know that you're real comfortable doing that and see that as, this is what I do because you do it all day for work. Sounds like a lot of work that I'm not even sure I'm willing to do, much less convince somebody else to do.
Nerd. I was talking to Alison, the data nerd, not the generic listener. My advice to the generic listener is to sign up when the notifications are working.
Yeah. But then you have to compare it to everything you knew from before in a CSV file to see the difference. How do I know
so
what's
my
new?
advice to go from 0 to where you want to be, one off and one off only, generate your full report today. That's everything that's happened ever before until today. Sign up to notifications today, and then you're
Okay.
good.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I do this and have this conversation with you every time. People going, Allison, you say this every time. Because this seems like something I would have pushed that button, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought I could just look at the list.
as a domain owner, you might find that you get to have quite a few for free. So you could probably get away with signing up for all of your domain, which is even cooler on the free
Okay.
tier. Probably.
Verified.
Anyway, we're getting
the failures happening in two browsers, so something's wrong right now. But it'll be fixed, I'm
No.
sure.
Well, they have a very shiny new website, which is generally better, but maybe having some teething issues.
Yeah.
Right, where was I? Yes, notable news. Just a timely reminder that if you have less tech-savvy, aging friends and family, just remember to be supportive of them and to keep an eye that they're not doing anything suspecty online, like telling you, hey, I need a bit of help getting a massive withdrawal from my bank account. Like, keep an eye, because another number is that in 2024, the Federal Trade Commission in the United States has reported there are $700 million lost to senior scams that were reported to law enforcement. The reporting level is not
Wow.
very high. Most people are too embarrassed to report. So if there's 700 million reported,
$700 million.
dollars.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So real people are getting very scammed. And we've heard firsthand stuff like Pat's story was horrifying. She described what was it her neighbor?
Yeah, it was her next door neighbor. Yeah, that was a classic example too, and she was this close. If Pat
she
had
would have
walked
been in
into the
that
house and seen the
stat.
stack of cash on the counter.
Yeah, she would have been in that horrible stat.
It makes me even more proud of Steve's parents because, man, they are. I think they will. Steve's dad will be the last person on earth caught in a phishing scam. I mean, knock on wood to make sure that's true. But if anything blips on his screen, Steve, what am I supposed to do here? This is different. It doesn't look like it did before. Good job.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. My mom is always really sheepish when she asks me to check if is this legitimate. And I say, firstly, Mom, don't be sheepish. Yes, it is, but it may well not have been. Keep checking.
Try a second method.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
encouraging them when the 957th time they ask you and it's a false alarm, keep saying good job.
Keep saying good job, even if mentally you're going, what you say out loud is, thank you, good job.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. A little warning that Meta have added a direct message feature into their Threads platform, which has been long called for. It is 2025, and despite that reality, Meta have added it without end-to-end encryption, which is insane in my opinion. To start, I mean, I know you can have technical debt that you did it 10 years ago and it wasn't end-to-end encrypted, but it's 2025 and this is a new feature. This is I can't understand. So discourage people from getting into the habit of using this. It didn't exist until this week. So what have you lost? Just don't start.
Yeah.
Okay, good news. We don't have many news stories, but I did find a good news one to end on. Also from Meta, just for circularity, I guess. WhatsApp are adding a little security feature. It's not earth-shattering, but it sounds genuinely useful. So quoting from Bleeping Computer, the feature displays a safety overview context card that includes information about the group's creation date, the number of members, potential scam attempts, and instructions on how to control who can add you to WhatsApp groups. So instead of just being added to a new group, you now get this little pop-over telling you, hey, someone's trying to add you to this group, here's all about it, and here's how you could change your settings if you don't really want to be randomly added to groups. Thank you. That's exactly what I'd want.
Yeah, definitely. That's good because I have been added to WhatsApp groups over and over and over and over again. Gets real old.
There is a setting somewhere which I found once and set it to only my contacts can add me to a new group, which means that my family make up new groups for family events and stuff, and I join them just fine, and I get 0 other group notifications.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. Right. Interesting insights. You sent along a story which I didn't think was quite palate cleanser, but it was very interesting and worthy of talking about, so I plopped it in here for you.
So there's an article on Petapixel that's the title says a little over 50% of people can recognize AI images from real photos. This is super fun. They did a test on a bunch of people, but you get to play the game yourself. You see an image and you have to say, is it real or is it Memorex? You know, is it AI or is it real? And I forget how many there were, maybe 20 of them. And at the end, it tells you how well you did. And I think I got something 62% of the people were better than me. In other words, 38% success. And I swear I was killing it, you know, and but I wasn't. It's really, really fun to go through and do and you know, all the things you look for. What I wish it did was go back and show you of the photos, here's where you got it wrong, so you could go back and pixel peep it a second time.
A little circle, have a look at this bit. This is weird,
and,
right?
I mean, it's no longer they've got 7 fingers. I mean, a couple of them they did have 7 fingers, but a lot of them didn't, and it's just like, oh, I was really disappointed myself. But it's good to know that you can't tell.
Right. I do find it interesting that they went with the glass half full. Over 50% of people can recognize AI images. In this day and age of clickbait, that's reassuring or refreshing to see it spun that way.
Yeah. So the percentage is how many people did better than you or worse than you?
I do like that as an answer.
But that doesn't mean like 100% means you did better than everybody else, but it doesn't mean you got it all right, I think. I'd have to go back and take it again.
Maybe they tell you 2 results, your actual score and how that puts you in the
I'm
cohort.
trying to remember. I think it was only one. I could be getting that wrong, but that's what I remember.
The memorable one, though, was how you did compared to everyone else, right? If they showed me 2 numbers, I'd only remember the one that told me if I was better or worse than average. Like, that's me.
Right. Average is not very good these days.
Also fair. Very fair. Now, true palate cleansers, we have 2 from you spread over 2 different media types.
Yeah, so the first one is an article by a woman named Leonie Watson, and she's worth a follow everywhere. Anywhere whatever medium you're on, follow her. She's a fantastic writer, and she writes about blind accessibility. And she wrote an article for something called Tetralogical on accessibility and the agentic web. And this is one of the first times I've really understood what agentic means. Agentic means a AI that can actually take action on your behalf. So the kind of thing that you can say, okay, call my hairdresser, get me an appointment sometime next week. Don't make it between 11 and 1. And then it just goes off and does all that work. That's an agentic AI. Anyway, what she talked about was accessibility she put a very narrow field to her examples, and she talked about shopping. She said, okay, let's say I go to a shopping website and I want to buy a sweater. And if it's a really good site, it's going to have a description, an alt tag about the image. And so she puts in what the alt tag was, and it talked about it had ribbing and it was blue and long sleeve or whatever. And then she goes through and she explains all the problems with that description. Like one of the things it didn't tell you was, is it for a man or a woman? It wasn't in the description.
Oh.
It's like, I thought it was a pretty good description, and it wasn't. It's like, where's the ribbing? Is it on the cuffs? Is it on the collar? Is it around the waist? Where is that ribbing? You know, you have really no sense of what it is without that. But she said there's these agents that are coming out now that can do that kind of thing for you, where you can ask it questions about this thing or help me find, I want a sweater that's got ribbing at the cuffs and the collar, but not at the waist. And I want it for a woman. And how is it going to drape? And is it a V-neck or a crew neck? And she got into this very specific example, but it really opened my eyes to the things that you know, we wouldn't think of because we could look right at it and see what it is. So it was kind of cool to think about the agentic web helping with accessibility in that way. I thought it's a great article, and she's just does obviously a much better job of it than what I just said.
Cool. And then you have, if you prefer not to read, you have another option, which is I watched this because you needed me to verify that you didn't need an Instagram account, and you don't. So I had a good watch. This is cool.
Yeah, it's a video of the moment TV went color, and there isn't anything documented of exactly when on Earth the first color was on TV, but this is a case of where it's a newscaster, two newscasters, and they're there in black and white, and they describe what's going to happen, and one of them gets up and walks to another set, and it flips into color. And they said, even if you don't have a color TV set yet, you're going to actually see a richer, better picture because of the way the cameras do it. It's just kind of cute to watch. It's fun. It's a moment in history that's interesting, I thought.
I thought the design of the two sets was really interesting. The black and white set, they were sitting on an ordinary table, and it just looked like two guys at a desk recording a podcast, to be perfectly honest, just in suits and ties. And then they move over to this space-agey looking desk that would be at home in mission control with, like, you know, the way those flat printed nameplates you'd have on mission control saying Capcom or
Right.
whatever. And it's the news desk. It's like, okay, this is modern. This is less modern. I thought it was very cool.
Oh, good. I thought it might be a little bit silly, but I thought it was nifty.
That's fascinating. Yeah, what I have is a little bit silly, but I was in the mood for something a little bit silly. So I'm a giant fan of the Grammar Girl podcast because very, very slowly, like your dad's bottle of wine, I keep listening to Mignon Fogarty tell me about grammar and I get less bad at it all the time, slowly. But every now and then she throws in an interview show. And in this case, it was an interview with a lady who she reminds me of me in the sense that she grew up in an English-speaking country, but she is from a Dutch-speaking country. So she grew up in the same bilingual way I did. And she has a blog, which happens to be in Dutch, so we can't go and enjoy the blog. But she did an interview in English with Mignon, where she describes words that exist in Dutch, which you cannot translate to English because there is no matching English word. It is concepts that exist in Dutch as a single word, and in English they are half sentences. And she says, I'm a
Okay.
translator by profession, and I come across these when I'm translating from Dutch to English, and it's really bloody annoying. And every time I get one, I blog about it, and I have this fun blog, but for this conversation, I just picked two. And the first one is so useful in Dutch that I realize I have made up an English word and I have always used it. And it's so obvious. No one has ever told me I made up the word. How manyeth? Right? Was it the first, second, third? How manyeth? And I say that. And now I realize I say that. And no one ever looks at me funny. They just go, oh, yeah, fifth.
So how manyeth
that?
is the extreme example?
Well, no,
Like,
you're asking
however
for the
manyeth?
ordinal. How do you ask for the ordinal? Someone says, oh, yeah, I did really well in that marathon on Saturday. Oh, how manyeth? First, second, third, fourth.
Oh, okay. It sounds like a great word, and that's exactly how it's pronounced in Dutch?
Well, it's hoeveelste, which if you literally transpose, the word hoeveel is how many in one word, because the Dutch love one word, and ste just means eeth. So it is literally how
Okay.
manyeth.
I think we should all start using it and make it a word.
I agree. And then the second
we
word...
know that could happen.
Yeah, the second word I'm not going to spoil. It's also useful once a year, every year, and it allows Dutch people to have one-word birthday cards.
One-word birthday card. Okay,
One-word
you're going to get
birthday
us to
cards.
listen to this, aren't
I'm
you?
going to get you to listen. I'm going to double get you to listen. Well, you, Alison, because the second half of the conversation is how AI is affecting her profession of translating.
Oh,
Which, again, that's the
interesting.
kind of thing you love. So I figured, hey, double win. You like language weirdness and AI.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a post on Mastodon today that was someone saying, basically, I'll die on this hill, that I'm still going to keep using M dashes and...
Oh, yeah.
Well, hang on. I'm going to still keep using M dashes, emojis as bullet points, and I forget what the third one was, even though that tags me as AI. Oh, it was Oxford commas. It was Oxford commas, because as of right now, if you use those three things, you will be tagged as being AI.
That was true in ChatGPT 4, but ChatGPT 5 has stopped doing that. So that's one of those things like when you were talking about the phishing stuff, true today. So it was true yesterday that those were the markers of AI, but they're not the markers of GPT-5. So give it 6 months and that trope of, oh, you've used an M dash, you must be AI will go away because the AI has stopped doing it.
So the AI is going to stop using M dashes and Oxford commas and emojis as bullet points?
Okay, I only know for a fact about the M dashes. ChatGPT-5's use of M dashes has plummeted. Not to zero.
So was it using them incorrectly?
No, it was. So you know the way ChatGPT-4 was it had a certain style. It really liked complimenting you, and
oh yeah,
they all talk with a particular voice. And the voice of ChatGPT-4 really liked M dashes. That was like its personality. It just liked them.
But I mean, they're a proper
Absolutely.
punctuation.
But I'm not saying they were doing it wrong. They did it more than the average human being. And therefore, people started to associate it with AI because ChatGPT-4 used it so much. But 5 has stopped doing that. So that memory that M dashes are AI glop, that's going to vanish out of people's minds because the glop from GPT-5 won't have them.
Still be glop, but losing the markers. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm glad you cleared that up for me because I was irritated by that concept that using a punctuation mark correctly would mark you as being AI because normal humans don't know about it. That seemed wrong.
That is kind of because, ChatGPT-4 was so fond of it. It was kind of like, that's a big use of that thing I almost never see.
I'm all highfalutin about M dashes, and you
I
taught me about them, what, like 8 months ago?
Yes. Alison, we don't have a huge amount of content, but we may or may not be going longer than you think. If you have time for an anecdote, I'd like to share one of my own. Just an anecdote.
Sure, why not?
So I've been playing around with more AI in really specific cases because I find it works best for me, not as a chat, but as something within a context where it's very aware of what I'm doing and it's very focused on a specific task. And so I've loved the warp.dev AI or terminal for years, and it has become an AI terminal. So it has one mode where you type terminal commands and another mode where you type descriptions of the terminal command you'd like to run. It assembles the command for you, explains what it's done, and then gives you a button to play. And then it runs the command, analyzes the answer, and gives you a summary of what it means. And then there's a disclosure triangle to see the raw output or just the line that's relevant. So to illustrate the point, I want to show you what actually happened to me this week because I needed to do something that I don't do very often. One of those tasks you do every 6 months or something, and you know how you'd find the right answer, but you don't have it on the tip of your tongue. And I was like, I am lazy. How about I let the AI offer me some help here? So I said, how do I get the CAA DNS record for domain ... It answered, to get the CAA record for the domain ... you can use a dig command, which is a DNS lookup tool available on Mac OS. Here's how. Shows me the command, which is perfect, and gives me a play button. So I hit the button. It says, the CAA Certificate Authority Authorization DNS record for my domain. And then it shows me the one line from the massive dig output that actually has the real information. And then it says, this means, and it breaks it down and says 0 means it's non-critical status, tag is specifies which certificate authority, the value means only Amazon Web Services, and then it has a one-line summary. This CAA record restricts certificate issuance for this domain to Amazon's certificate authority only, which is a security measure to prevent unauthorized certificate issuance by other certificate authorities. If that isn't perfect, I don't know what is.
So you could have done that.
Yes.
And reading it, you knew all of it, but it's not something you're in the habit of doing regularly, so it's easier to have it just give you a little pointer there.
I would have had to, I would have had to use the man page for dig to remember exactly how to get the CAA record, which is a really weird record. And then I would have had to look up the spec for CAA to interpret the answer to 100% certainty. So it would have taken me say 60 seconds to read the man page and 60 seconds to read the meaning of the answer, that's 2 minutes. Right? And this was seconds.
Why spend those 2 minutes, right?
Yeah. And I really wanted to see what it would do because I would have recognized a garbage answer because I have done this before. So I would have realized if it was spoofing at me. And I was expecting it to do okay. But if I was teaching this to students, I don't think I'd teach it better than this AI agent taught me. I asked for help. It gave me the answer with an explanation, held my hand, and then it helped me to understand the answer in such a way that I proactively learned what this is and why it matters. Like the fact that not only what the value of the record is, but what the record's purpose is, which is a security feature. That's brilliant.
Right. I like this. I like it when it gives you the explanation because then you can spend time. One of the things I've learned to ask AI when it gives me a command on the terminal is to say, so what's going to happen when I press this button? Or how dangerous is this? And I've had it come back and say, oh yeah, this is really not probably a good idea. Why did you just tell me to do that? So I highly suggest always asking it that question. How much damage could this do if if this goes belly up? And it's like, oh, okay, I don't trust you at all anymore. But I would check everything. Does Warp cost for its AI?
Unless you use it a lot, no. So it's tiered. So you get a certain amount of free queries. And I don't know what that number is, but I haven't hit it.
That's excellent. Well, I've downloaded and installed it while we're talking and signed up.
Of course you have.
I know. Now it has stuff I got to read, so I can't quite do it yet.
Yes. Right. Okay. Well, there we go. I don't know if that's a palate cleanser, but it's a little bonus anecdote. It cheered me up this week to see, oh, wow, okay, this is cool.
I like it.
Okay, folks, even though I've distracted you with cool AI, don't forget the core message is still the same. Stay patched so you stay secure.
Well, that's going to wind us up for this week. Did you know you can email me at allison@podfeed.com anytime you like? I haven't gotten a dumb question in a really long time. You should send those on over. Remember, everything good starts with podfeed.com. You can follow me on Mastodon at podfeed.com/Mastodon. If you want to listen to the podcast on YouTube, go to podfeed.com/YouTube. If you want to join the conversation, you can join our Slack community at podfeed.com/Slack. And in there, you can talk to me and all of the other lovely No Silicastaways. You can support the show like the heroes from 2016 and by going to podfeed.com/Patreon. Or if you'd rather do a one-time donation, podfeed.com/donate or podfeed.com/PayPal. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, like all of the lovely No Silicastaways that joined me this week, head on over to podfeed.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Join the friendly and enthusiastic No Silicastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed.